All forms are inherently empty. There is nothing inside of anything. We think there is something inside of Khaleesi or something inside of me or something separate inside other things in the world, but there is nothing which is inside them. All there is what's happening, and what's happening is perfect stillness and movement simultaneously, is emptiness as form. We think that we're something that's independent, that we are a separate entity inside of these bodies, that we are something inside here looking out at something else. And this is where all the suffering stems from, this initial separation that happens when the body is 1 or 2 or 3 years old. Once that separation starts, that separate person starts to look for wholeness, and it looks in the world of pleasure and pain. The body naturally moves towards pleasure and avoids pain. That's how mammals are set up. So this body moves towards warmth if it's cold, it moves towards food if it's hungry, it moves towards love and affection from humans and away from hatred. So the bodies always move towards pleasure and avoid pain. That's how the bodies are set up. They're programmed like that. It's the way Khaleesi is also programmed. And all mammals are programmed like this. Khaleesi is just sitting next to me. There she is. She's the beauty, I'm the brains. And the separate self, when it begins, so when it starts, when the separation starts, it then takes this moving towards pleasure as completion, and pain is incompletion. So it attempts to hold on to pleasure, to maintain pleasure, and to find wholeness, the end of separation, in pleasure. But pleasure is simple functioning that happens. That's the way the body moves. It moves in that direction, but it is in no way going to get you to wholeness. Pleasure is never going to get someone to wholeness, because the someone is what creates the idea of separation. And pleasure is something that comes and goes. It will never be a completion. But our whole society, oh, she's so adorable, I have to show you her. Our whole society is based on that dynamic of moving towards pleasure and using pleasure as some form of wholeness and completion, and trying to avoid pain. We always believe that completion, and our society sells this as well, will be found in objects that are attained. And our society at the moment currently reflects that in the selling of things and consumption. And the society in that way is thriving because everybody is buying like crazy. People buy and buy and buy, always believing that the next thing that they buy, the next thing that they get, they will suddenly feel as if they've got enough. And it's actually making us destroy our planet and destroy our home. And it's making us increasingly unhappy because we have to work so freaking hard in order to buy all these things. And they never do it. They never complete you. In fact, what happens is that seeking gets stronger. It gets even more intense. It's validated that something in the world will complete you, and then it seeks harder and harder and harder, trying to get that. And it can't be got. There's a moment of relief when the pleasure is got. There's a moment when getting the new car, when getting the new dog. Although not Khaleesi. Not Khaleesi. She's a disaster dog. Or getting the new house. There's a moment of high, so the seeking stops momentarily, but it comes back. That seeking energy comes back because it's never been solved, that sense of feeling separate, that you in some way have lost wholeness. And so deep down at the root of it all, there is always a sense that something's been lost. And there is a fear also that the world is going to attack you because you are something separate. And it's like it feeds off the natural tendencies of the body, because the natural tendency of the body is to avoid fear, is to avoid pain. The natural tendency of the body is to move towards pleasure. And the separate self feeds off that. And it fears pain, it fears dying, it fears anything that will destroy the body. And because the body naturally has fear, it's part of the setup, it makes it 10 times worse. And then there's so much anxiety about everything that happens, and choosing and pleasure and what to do. And then as the body gets older and older, it lives more and more in a mental reality, and it lives more and more in thinking. And this thinking gets intense. It's always trying to tell a story about what's happening, and it gets obsessed about the stories, and it's always trying to run away from that sense of feeling uncomfortable, of feeling incomplete. So it gets lost in storyline land of trying to be better than your neighbor, trying to stop someone saying something, in petty things, in anxiety, in fear, righteousness, envy, jealousy. And all of these emotions are actually natural things of the body. To have jealousy and envy, they're actually a natural part of a human or a mammal body. But the separate self believes that in not experiencing these emotions and feelings, it will be happy and complete, and that it's got to avoid all these emotions as much as it can. So it pushes them down, and it tells the opposite story. It doesn't want to be jealous, so it tells, oh, I hate them, or it's their fault, or they're not enough, or they're making me jealous, they're purposely making me jealous, or it stalks someone on the internet, and just lives in this mental reality of it and pushes down this emotion. And the more that it pushes it down, the more the emotion wants to come up and explode. In a way, it maintains it. It kind of like it's giving fuel to the fire. It's making it last. Rather than the jealousy just appearing and disappearing naturally, it's like it's held onto. And all these things kind of make it feel like there is something solid inside this body experiencing the world, and that is you. Rather than this body is empty, it feels like there is energetically something in there. But it's this illusion of self that's holding on to all these things and grabbing them. I mustn't feel jealousy. I mustn't feel emotions. I mustn't feel negativity. I should only feel pleasure. And it always wants to be something else than it is. So it listens to non-duality and suddenly it wants to be enlightened. So it's constantly looking for where it's enlightened. It's constantly looking for the path to enlightenment, and then how it is enlightened or how it isn't enlightened. And it's constantly evaluating everything. And it doesn't want to not be enlightened. So if it shows any unenlightened emotions, it pushes them away or tries to sit in awareness to not feel them again, doing the same game, believing that there is somebody separate having an experience. It gets in such a tangle. It gets so tangled up. And then people begin to do really bizarre things, like living in this society is a bizarre thing. And we do these bizarre office jobs, working 8 hours a day at jobs that we don't really want to do because we're scared and we don't know what else to do. We keep following what we're told.